This is WUSA 9 News at 5, and tonight the government shutdown has stretched into day 20, making this the third longest shutdown in history. We thank you for joining us on WUSA 9 and streaming on WUSA 9 Plus. I'm Leslie Foster.
And I'm Lorenzo Hall. So the Senate is set to hold another vote on a short-term spending plan in about 30 minutes from now. But by the way, this is the same bill that has failed several times already.
Yeah, same bill, likely same outcome. This shutdown is having a huge impact on our community, where hundreds of thousands of federal workers live. And a big concern that we see a lot of people talking about online is food assistance.
Yeah, this is why the U.S. Department of Agriculture says money to fund food stamps will run out in November, hurting more than 40 million people.
That is a huge number. Kelly Vaughn joins us now live from the Capital Area Food Bank in Northeast D.C. It is a lifeline for so many families in our region. Kelly, what are you hearing tonight?
Well, I'm hearing we're in a sort of perfect storm for food insecurity. People in the DMV have already been struggling with putting food on the table. Over the last year, 1 in 3 people said they needed help with that. Now, add on top of it the federal workers who are out of work, missing paychecks, and needing some help. And now that funding for the Federal Food Assistance Program, SNAP, could also be running out.
It would be devastating. I mean, in this day and age especially, where the cost of everything is so high.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says if the federal funding runs out, there is no local funding available to cover SNAP, which helps people with low income buy nutritious food.
The federal government needs to do its job and pay. They need to get open and pay the benefits.
In addition to helping low-income people, SNAP benefits are used by the elderly and people with disabilities.
Across our region, we have at least 450,000 people who rely on food stamps or SNAP.
Radha Mathia is the CEO of the Capital Area Food Bank. She says the DMV has already been battling food insecurity. Their 2025 hunger report found 36% of residents struggled to put food on the table last year.
It doesn't take a lot to go from, financial stability to financial strain.
That's a strain many federal workers are feeling as the shutdown enters its third week. To help out, the food bank is offering new food distributions for federal workers and contractors impacted by the shutdown. They'll offer boxes of shelf-stable pantry items and fresh produce. Matthias says this food is for federal workers, and they shouldn't hesitate to ask for help.
People will say, I've been a donor to you. I come and volunteer. I didn't know that I would be on the other end of the line.
Federal workers will need to show a government ID. The distributions will last until the government reopens. Now, we have all those locations and times of those new distributions listed on our website. But if you want to help, the food bank says you can donate your time or your money. They say every dollar that you donate equates to 2 meals for somebody in need. Reporting live in Northeast D.C., Kelly Vaughn at WUSA 9.
It's just so amazing how they can stretch those dollars in so many ways and how significant it is now, given where we are.
And so sad it's come to this.
Really?
Boy. All right, Kelly, thank you.
For a home life that is exciting and full of energy, Farmers Home Furniture offers everything you need in one.
Chilling video captured on a Ring doorbell camera.
Open the door!
3 people wearing Halloween masks terrorizing a family in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C., late Tuesday night.
The worst nightmare.
The 3 apparently laughing at first, but their actions quickly becoming more sinister. From pulling on the front door
Open the door! Open the door!
to making the motion of cutting their throat before threatening to break into the house.
I'm gonna count to 10. If this door doesn't open, we're gonna come in. 1, 2.
I said Happy Halloween when they first came, asked them to get off the property. When they didn't, that's when I realized it wasn't a joke anymore.
Our ABC affiliate WJLA speaking with Shayla, one of those family members inside. She says the 3 never got into the house.
They tore the whole thing down.
She says they made their way to the backyard, destroying her fence and the screen to the back door.
They came through there, and that's how they entered to get to our door to be able to knock on the back door.
I'm not aware of incidents that have occurred this heinous before, and that's why it's so concerning.
Police in Alexandria now investigating. The chief calling this video very alarming.
But we're going to take every step once we identify them, to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law.
Investigators say what may be seen as a prank days before Halloween is no joke.
Going around to their backyard, destroying property, and transitions from a prank to a criminal offense. And we take these incidents seriously.
And the chief says his message to whoever did this is turn yourself in. Shayla says that is her mom's house. Her mom now lives in fear because they do not know who did this. Police say they have promising leads with it.
Well, that's good that they have leads. They're just terrifying.
Okay, so really terrifying.
Thank you, Perry. We appreciate it.
Listen to this. Prosecutors filing a motion for a pretrial detention, attempting to put that guy, Jacoby Vontrell Tillman, accused of trying to rape a woman on a Florida trail. Prosecutors want to put him back in custody.
Yeah, despite having a criminal history, he was released on just $9,500 bond, less than 48 hours after being arrested. He is expected to appear in court today.
Here with us now is Florida Senator Ashley Moody. Senator Moody, why? Why was this bail so low, especially in a tough-on-crime state like Florida? Something doesn't add up here.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't add up. I can tell you the sheriff of that county is incensed. The people of that county cannot believe a judge would let a person like this out. Look, bond and detention decisions are generally based on two things. Is this person a danger to the community? Can we guarantee they're not going to hurt other people? And can we guarantee they'll show back up in court? You're generally looking at those two things. I can tell you, as a former prosecutor and judge myself, those are the things that it boils down to. And if you have a person like this who is accused of sexual battery, harming someone. I mean, the details of this case are incredible. Grabbed a woman, she was jogging, allegedly assaulted her. He's been in prison, and when they were looking for him, his mother was arranging for him to fly out of the state and get out of Dodge. This is the example of a person that should be locked up and not a danger to the community. So I think you have a lot of people scratching their heads, and they're going to have a lot of answering to do. Certainly the judge that made this decision is going to be highly scrutinized now.
Senator, what he said was, I didn't rape the lady. Instead, I was trying to kill the lady. And when asked why, he said he wanted to know what it was like to choke someone out. I mean, this is sick. And the fact
and the real question is, why did the judge, you have a prosecutor now, and by the way, this is one of the prosecutors that Governor DeSantis had removed from office and is back in office now. The question is, were they insistent at that hearing and giving the judge all of the facts of this case, not only the criminal background, but all of those unique facts, exactly what you're talking about? I know that they've come in now and said that they're going to ask for this to be reconsidered. They file additional charges, but you've got to have all of that information presented to the judge at that time. And if the judge knew that and she let this guy out, that is unacceptable and certainly can't happen in a law and order state like Florida.
Meanwhile, Senator, from Florida to Washington, the government shutdown is still ongoing, and President Trump is expected to host a lunch at the Rose Garden for Senate Republicans. You will be in attendance at this lunch, so what do you anticipate the topic of conversation to be about?
Yeah, the topic of conversation needs to be, how do we impress upon the Democrats that the time for you to shore up your radical cred, the I Hate America rallies and theatrics are over. You have got to do what's best for this country, the people that are relying on paychecks to provide for their families. You need to buck Schumer, man up, and vote for this bipartisan clean funding bill so we can open back up this country. It is incredibly important that the Dems understand this is on them. We voted 11 times last night, the 11th vote, and they continue to keep this government shut down for nonsense to appease some radical base, and I assume so that Chuck Schumer can shore up his radical creds.
That's 100%. But I want to get you on the record here. The nuclear option is being discussed. And for those of you who don't know, that would eliminate the filibuster and allow you guys to move forward with a simple majority, not the 60 votes that you currently need. Are you in favor of the nuclear option just to get this thing moving along and get this shutdown over?
Well, as you know, we had to look at our rules because we had historic obstruction by the Democrats in terms of moving President Trump's nominations along. I can tell you that those discussions in terms of how we proceed and how we open back up this government are having. I know that leadership is saying that that's not something that they want to happen, because on the other side of this, the Dems have a lot of things that they want to do that I believe would hurt this country if they did that. But those discussions are on the table, and many of my colleagues are having those discussions right now.
Senator, thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you enjoyed the lunch, both the topic of conversation and the menu as well. Senator Ashley Moody from Florida, we appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
I'm sick of all the division that's in this country.
People that just don't care anymore.
The Trump administration can send Oregon National Guard troops to the streets of Portland, Oregon. That's according to a federal appeals court ruling yesterday that dismissed a lower court's order barring that deployment. Earlier this month, a U.S. district judge and Trump appointee ruled that the president's claims of violence in Portland were exaggerated and, quote, simply untethered to the facts. But in a 2-1 decision yesterday, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals argued, quote, it's likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority. This ruling, however, only gives the green light to Oregon National Guard troops. A temporary restraining order still stops troops from other states being sent to Portland, at least for now. The dissenting judge criticized her colleague's ruling, writing that the decision is, quote, not merely absurd, it erodes core constitutional principles, including sovereign states' control over their state's militias and the people's First Amendment rights to assemble and object to the government's policies and actions. Just hours after the ruling came down, an unnamed judge on the Ninth Circuit asked for the full panel of judges on the court to rehear the case. Lawyers for both sides have until tomorrow night to refile their arguments on whether or not the case should be reheard. Joining us now, MSNBC White House correspondent Laura Barone-Lopez. Laura, you've been tracking this closely. What does this court ruling say about the larger efforts from this administration to deploy National Guard troops to a number of different states that have said, we do not want them?
Well, it emboldens the administration, emboldens President Trump, because this is what they've been wanting. This is what they say that the president has the legal authority to do, despite the fact that, there are a number of states, including Oregon and its leaders, that feel that this is crossing a line. Even Republican governors have a few number from Oklahoma and from Vermont have said that they can't imagine if a Democratic president were to send National Guard troops into their state, and so the president shouldn't be doing this, when those governors are saying that this is not necessary. Now, the big question is, again, as you laid out, does this ultimately happen? When we asked the White House yesterday, they didn't respond to whether or not they were going to be immediately sending troops to Portland, or does this get blocked again if they rehear the case? And also, what happens with Chicago and Illinois? Because the Supreme Court could be ruling on that very soon.
Yeah, you tee me up perfectly, because that is the next question that I had for you. When you see that this is what a lower court is ruling, what do you think the Supreme Court might say when it comes to Illinois, and then the impact that that could have, given that that ruling is coming not from a circuit court of appeals, but from the Supreme Court itself?
Well, the Supreme Court decision could be very narrow, and it could ultimately end up only applying to Illinois, so there could be that. They could also decide that they're not going to really weigh in too much into the merits of that case, which is something that they've been doing with a number of decisions where they back up the president. They don't necessarily explain why they're backing up the president, so we could very well see them do that when it comes to Illinois. I think that, again, the question is legally, what is the recourse if the Supreme Court backs him up? Where does Governor Pritzker of Illinois take this, and how do they continue to push back against the administration? Because you expect both Newsom and Pritzker to say that that isn't the end of the line for them, that they're going to continue to fight the administration.
Yeah, certainly. And I think in the background, and we've talked about this in relation to this story, there's the immediate legal effect, there's the impact on the ground, but then there's also the way that the 2028 politics are very much percolating around this as well. I think that's a separate conversation for a different time for you and I. But in the short term, what is the White House saying in regards to what could happen on the ground in Oregon?
Well, they aren't saying yet when or if they are going to send troops, despite the fact that they've clearly been wanting to do this for some time now. Yeah. So we asked, does this mean that troops are going to be immediately be deployed. They didn't say anything. They just said that this shows that the president is on solid legal footing. Now, the president has been throwing out the Insurrection Act a lot in the last 2 weeks or so, but that was because he was getting pushback from courts, from even a Trump-appointed judge in Oregon, who was the initial judge that said that this doesn't reflect reality on the ground and you can't do this. And so you sense that frustration from the president as well as his team, and they continue to threaten potentially other action that they felt he had pretty wide berth to do. Now, I expect that because of the fact that they're seeing some wins in the Circuit Court of Appeals, that they aren't necessarily going to take that Insurrection Act step just yet.
Yeah, but we'll ultimately see. And then obviously if this case is reheard, that would just give us yet another chapter as we continue to track this larger story.